And welcome. We start with the developments in Western Africa's Sahel region, as Burkina Faso sees a surge in armed attacks. Reports say dozens of Russian military instructors have arrived in the country to help it fight the insurgency. Though there has been no official confirmation, sources close to the government have informed of the development. According to reports, 2 rotations of planes came from neighboring Mali carrying Russian military instructors.
Something dangerous is brewing in Burkina Faso. The country's young president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has survived yet another assassination attempt, this one closer and deadlier than any before. But what followed has sent even bigger ripples through the region. Just days after the failed coup, Russian special forces touched down in the capital, not for diplomacy, not for aid. They were there to protect the president, armed, ready and on a mission. This sudden arrival of Russian commandos in West Africa wasn't just a tactical move. It was a signal, a message to enemies both inside and outside Burkina Faso. Traoré isn't backing down, and he's not alone. Let's back up. Since taking power in September 2022, Traoré has been walking a tightrope. A former military captain, he rose to leadership during a time of instability and mounting insurgencies. From the northern territories plagued by Islamist militants to the deep divisions in Ouagadougou's political class, Burkina Faso has been anything but peaceful, but the events of April 2025 pushed the nation into uncharted territory. That month, a coordinated coup attempt nearly unseated Traoré's government. This wasn't just a band of rogue soldiers acting on their own. It was a complex, multi-layered network, former military leaders, active officers, and suspected insurgent sympathizers, all pulling together in secret. Their goal was clear: remove Traoré and dismantle the fragile structure he was trying to hold together. The plot came dangerously close to succeeding, and when it failed, Traoré acted fast, but instead of calling on traditional allies, France, the US, or other West African nations, he turned to Moscow. Within days, Russian special forces were flown in. No ceremony, no press, just boots on the ground. The move stunned political observers. For decades, Burkina Faso had been tightly linked to France, its former colonizer and primary security partner. French troops were once stationed in the country, providing intelligence and running counter-insurgency missions, but that partnership had eroded fast. Traoré's government had grown wary of Paris, and frankly, so had many ordinary citizens. To them, France represented a legacy of control, not support. The withdrawal of French troops from neighboring Mali in 2023 only deepened the skepticism. France was pulling out, and Russia was waiting. The Russians who arrived in Burkina Faso were no ordinary troops. These were elite commandos, trained for high-risk operations, skilled in counterinsurgency, and loyal to the Kremlin's broader push into Africa. Their orders: secure the president, fortify key government institutions, and prevent any further threats. They didn't just stand outside the presidential compound, they moved through the city, sweeping government offices, inspecting military sites, and setting up security protocols. In effect, they locked down the core of the state. Traoré, once seen as isolated and vulnerable, now had a protective wall around him, and it had a Russian flag painted on it. But this wasn't just about protecting one man, it was about transforming the battlefield. Russian operatives have begun training Burkina Faso's own military. Everything from counterintelligence tactics to strategic surveillance is now being shared. The goal? Build a stronger national force, one capable of resisting insurgents, repelling coups, and standing on its own. And so far it's working. Local forces are sharper, more coordinated, and crucially, more confident. With Russian support, Traoré's government has regained some breathing room. But in politics, especially in a place as unstable as the Sahel, breathing room is never guaranteed to last. This move toward Russia marks a seismic shift in the country's direction. Traoré isn't just switching military advisors, he's rewriting alliances. For years, Western support came with strings. Talks about democracy, reforms, and political balance. Russia doesn't ask those questions. Their message is blunt: we'll help, no lectures. It's a message that's finding ears across the continent, leaders under siege from insurgents, facing growing disillusionment with the West, see in Russia a partner that doesn't meddle. Traoré's pivot is fast becoming a blueprint, but every decision comes with risks. Burkina Faso is now part of a broader strategy, Russia's long-term push to gain influence across Africa. From mining contracts to military installations, the Kremlin has been quietly expanding its presence. In Traoré's country, they now have both a foothold and a reason to stay. The West is watching, and not quietly. France's intelligence services are reportedly tracking every move. The US State Department issued a cautious statement calling for regional stability, but the writing is on the wall. Burkina Faso is no longer a reliable Western partner. Some critics say Traoré is making a dangerous bet, trading one form of dependency for another, that instead of breaking free from foreign control, he's simply choosing a different master. But supporters say this is about sovereignty, about finally cutting the strings that have bound the country to an unequal relationship for decades. Still, the situation inside Burkina Faso remains volatile. Insurgents haven't disappeared, political rivals remain active, and public trust in the government is fragile. Even with Russian guns guarding the gates, the deeper problems persist. Poverty, lack of infrastructure, an economy that works for too few. None of these will be solved by foreign troops, and there's the military itself. Historically, Burkina Faso has been plagued by internal divisions. Loyalties shift, officers plot. The April coup attempt wasn't an isolated incident, it was a warning. Traoré may have Russian guards now, but keeping his own military united will be his toughest battle yet. As for the gold, the country's most valuable resource, it's both a blessing and a curse. With the economy under strain, there's growing pressure to unlock the wealth beneath the ground. But years of corruption and shady foreign deals have left many skeptical. Will this new partnership with Russia lead to investment or more exploitation? The choices Traoré makes in the coming months will define not just his presidency, but the direction of an entire nation. If he can deliver stability, strengthen the military, and manage foreign relations without losing control, he might just pull Burkina Faso out of its downward spiral. But if not, if the insurgency grows, if the military fractures, or if Russian influence becomes a new kind of burden, then the country could sink deeper into crisis. That's the crossroads Burkina Faso stands at now. A president who's survived a coup, foreign troops in the streets, and a people waiting to see whether this is the beginning of real independence or just a new chapter in a long story of outside control. What's happening in Burkina Faso is no longer just about Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré's decision to welcome Russian special forces in the wake of an attempted coup has rippled far beyond his borders. From Mali to Niger, from Ghana to the Central African Republic, leaders, citizens and insurgents alike are all watching closely. Because this isn't just a security deal, it's a political statement. One that says the old rules don't apply anymore. For decades, African countries facing internal crises turned to Western powers, mainly France, the UK and the United States, for aid, guidance and sometimes intervention. That script is being rewritten fast. Burkina Faso, long viewed as one of France's regional partners, has flipped the script entirely. Instead of turning to Paris in a moment of crisis, Traoré called Moscow, and Moscow answered with guns, training, intelligence, and critically, no public lectures on democracy or human rights. That approach is catching on. In Mali, French troops were asked to leave. In the Central African Republic, Russian paramilitary contractors have already been embedded for years, helping secure key regions and train national forces. In Niger, political conversations are shifting, and citizens are beginning to question what they've really gained from decades of Western military and economic involvement. There's a name for what's happening, even if it hasn't been officially declared: Africa's recalibration, and Burkina Faso is leading it. The argument from many African leaders is simple: we've played by the West's rules, and we're still not safe, still not prosperous, still not in control of our own destiny. So why keep playing the same game? Enter Russia, and increasingly China. These nations aren't arriving with the same narratives. They're not promising democratic reform or free market transitions or human rights benchmarks. They're offering infrastructure deals, weapons, training, and trade, often with fewer strings attached. In a world where Western nations are increasingly distracted by their own internal problems, the opening was wide, and Moscow walked right through it. Back in Ouagadougou, the political stakes couldn't be higher. The Russian commandos still guarding the president aren't just bodyguards, they're symbols. Their presence tells Traoré's enemies, inside and outside the military, that any future attempts to seize power will come at a higher cost. But they also send a message to the population: we've turned east. For some, this message brings hope. There's a sense among many that the West's promises have been hollow, that years of military support from France and the US failed to stop the rise of Islamist insurgencies or improve life for ordinary people. Russian involvement, some argue, may bring discipline, results, and a break from the usual cycle of dependency. But there's also skepticism. Russia, after all, isn't new to the game of global power. Its interests are strategic, its moves calculated. Analysts warn that while Russian aid may come without lectures, it's not exactly free. It comes with long-term expectations: mining rights, diplomatic loyalty, access to markets, and alignment in global forums. The danger, then, is that Burkina Faso might simply be swapping one type of dependency for another. That fear is growing among civil society groups, especially in the capital. Traoré's consolidation of power, his expanding relationship with Moscow, and the absence of transparent public debate on these moves are raising questions. Who's really calling the shots, and what will Burkina Faso owe in return? Then there's the question of regional stability. Burkina Faso's alliance with Russia is already putting pressure on neighbours. Mali, which expelled French forces in 2023, is doubling down on its own relationship with Moscow. Niger is teetering. Its leaders pulled in two directions. Even Ghana, a relatively stable democracy, is facing pressure from its population to reconsider its alignment with the West, especially as economic frustrations mount. What's building isn't just a series of isolated decisions, it's a momentum shift. Across the Sahel and West Africa, countries that once followed the post-independence formula align with the West, accept conditional aid, open markets, are now exploring new directions. Some are embracing Pan-Africanist rhetoric. Others are looking east. Many are simply tired of asking for help, only to be blamed, ignored, or left hanging when the crisis hits. In this context, Traoré's bold moves don't look quite so radical. They look like a test case. Can Burkina Faso survive and even thrive by pivoting away from Western institutions and building new alliances on its own terms? So far, the military balance is shifting. Russian training is producing more effective Burkinabé units, and several high-profile insurgent attacks have been repelled. Intelligence coordination has improved, government officials feel more secure, and while no one is calling the country stable, the momentum of chaos has, at least for now, slowed. But that's only part of the story. Traoré's administration still faces immense challenges. Inflation is squeezing families, fuel shortages are common, Schools in rural areas remain closed due to violence. Millions are internally displaced. And corruption, deep-rooted and stubborn, hasn't gone anywhere. In short, military security is buying time. But time to do what? The answer depends on what kind of leader Traoré wants to be. Right now, he has support from sections of the youth and military. He's viewed by some as a revolutionary, a fresh face willing to break the mold. But revolutions need more than just muscle. They need a plan. That's where the international spotlight becomes both an asset and a curse. Burkina Faso is now a front line in a larger geopolitical standoff between East and West. Russian analysts are closely monitoring the country's trajectory. Western diplomats are recalibrating their Africa strategies, and African citizens across the continent are watching Traoré's every move, asking, could we do the same? But let's not forget the local reality. The next attack, the next coup attempt, or the next budget crisis could undo everything. Traoré's gamble will only pay off if he can stabilize the economy, restore faith in government, and prove that Burkina Faso can protect its people without becoming a pawn in someone else's power game. He's playing for high stakes. One wrong move, and the entire strategy could collapse. But if he succeeds, even partly, he may set off a wave of changes across the continent, giving rise to a new model of leadership. One that's unapologetically African, strategically independent, and no longer content with foreign hand-holding. In Part 3, we'll dive deeper into the economic heart of the matter. Burkina Faso's gold, its long history of foreign exploitation, and whether this new alliance with Russia is opening doors to true development or simply redrawing the lines of control. We'll also ask, can a small landlocked country in crisis become the spark that redefines Africa's place in global politics? Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Beneath the surface of Burkina Faso's shifting alliances lies a much older story. It's not about soldiers or coups, it's about gold. This small landlocked country is one of the top gold producers in Africa. By value, it should be rich, but decades of mismanagement, foreign control, and corruption have meant that while gold leaves Burkina Faso, prosperity rarely arrives. The mines enrich companies and elites, while the people struggle to access clean water, jobs, or decent schools. Now, with the West fading and Russia stepping in, President Ibrahim Traoré faces a defining question. Can he finally reclaim the country's wealth for its people? Or is this just another reshuffling of foreign interests? The stakes couldn't be higher. Gold accounts for more than 70% of Burkina Faso's exports, but large portions of the sector have historically been dominated by foreign companies, mostly Canadian, British, and French. These companies struck deals under previous governments that were favourable to outsiders and murky to the public. Royalties were low, oversight was weak, communities near the mines were left polluted and poor. Traoré has vowed to change that. In his speeches, he talks about economic justice and national sovereignty. His administration says it's reviewing mining contracts. And with Russian interest growing, the government may be trying to play the East off the West in hopes of securing better terms. Russian firms, for their part, are watching closely. Some have already expressed interest in entering the gold sector. Russia doesn't just want a military presence in Africa, it wants economic footholds too. Mining is one of the easiest ways in, but if Traoré hands over the keys too quickly, the cycle of dependency could start all over again. That's the tightrope. Burkina Faso needs investment, it needs jobs, infrastructure and cash to rebuild after years of war and economic stagnation. Russia offers all of that, but it also expects something in return. Traoré must decide how to draw a line between partnership and surrender, and the pressure is building. On the ground, mining communities are restless. Many residents say they've seen little benefit from the gold boom. Roads remain unpaved, hospitals lack basic equipment, schools are either overcrowded or shut down due to security threats. Some citizens are hopeful that the pivot to Russia will finally break the cycle. Others worry it's just a new chapter in an old book. Meanwhile, insurgent groups are adapting. They've begun targeting gold transport routes, hijacking shipments, and extorting mine operators. Some mines have even shut down, not because of politics, but because it's just too dangerous to operate. The gold that was supposed to fund national growth is increasingly fueling instability. To stabilize the sector, Traoré needs to do more than renegotiate contracts. He needs to ensure security, enforce environmental protections, and rebuild trust with local communities. That's a long list, and he's running short on time, but the gold story is just one part of a much bigger puzzle. Burkina Faso isn't isolated. The world is watching closely, and so are neighbouring African countries. As France continues to lose influence in the Sahel, and as US policy remains cautious and distant, Russia is filling the vacuum. But this isn't happening in a void. China is also increasing its investments across Africa, offering loans, building infrastructure, and signing trade agreements at a breakneck pace. Traoré's Burkina Faso now sits at the centre of a global power contest. Western critics argue that Russia is exploiting African instability for its own gain. They point to Wagner Group involvement in other countries, opaque contracts, and a pattern of propping up strongmen. Supporters of the new alliance say the West had its chance and failed. They believe a fresh approach, even one with risks, is better than another decade of slow decline under Western terms. That's the dilemma for many African nations. Should they stay the course with the West, even as trust fades, or should they pivot to new partners, knowing those relationships may come with different but still heavy costs? For Traoré, the immediate goal is survival, not just political survival, but national. Insurgent attacks continue, inflation is rising, and the humanitarian crisis is worsening. More than 2 million people are now internally displaced. Schools and health centres remain shut in conflict zones. Every day, more families are forced to flee their homes. Foreign soldiers can't fix that. Traoré's vision must extend beyond security. He must build state capacity, real institutions that can serve the people. Otherwise, any victory on the battlefield will be temporary. The long-term war will be won not with guns, but with governance. That includes tackling corruption, which has long strangled public trust in Burkina Faso. It includes rebuilding a shattered education system, expanding clean energy access, fixing roads that have crumbled under years of neglect, giving people a reason to believe in something other than resistance or survival. Because for all the talk of coups and foreign policy, the soul of Burkina Faso lies with its people. And here's the truth, they've seen this story before. One leader after another. One foreign power replaced with the next. Big promises, big speeches, then nothing. Traoré has the chance to break that cycle, but only if he's bold enough to make the hard decisions for the right reasons. That's what separates revolution from repetition. He has shown courage, surviving assassination attempts, facing down coup plotters, and defying international pressure. But courage alone won't fix broken schools or deliver clean water. If this moment is to matter, it must be followed by action. That means holding even his allies accountable, including Russia. So what comes next? The answer may lie in how Traoré manages the balance between immediate threats and long-term vision. If he continues to rely on foreign troops without building domestic capacity, the security gains will fade. If he signs away national resources for short-term support, the country may be locked into a new cycle of exploitation. But if he can chart an independent course, using foreign alliances smartly, reforming broken systems, and reinvesting in his people, then Burkina Faso might just become the unexpected spark for a new era in Africa. One where nations don't have to choose between colonizers and Cold War empires. One where sovereignty is real, not rhetorical. One where the continent's wealth finally begins to serve its children, not foreign stockholders. That's the opportunity in front of Traoré. And it's enormous, but it won't last forever. The world is shifting. Africa is rising, but how that rise is shaped depends on the choices being made right now in dusty cities and embattled villages across countries like Burkina Faso. So, what do you think? Is President Traoré steering his country toward true independence or trading one master for another? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let your voice be part of this global conversation. If you believe Africa deserves to stand strong, free, and self-determined like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that go beyond the headlines. This is where the real change begins, right here with us. Thank you for watching.